Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
I'm Steve Higgins.
I'm Ross Aiken.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. It's another good one this week. We're in a little purple patch of really, really good stuff. We've had Walt Simonson's Dr. Fate and another issue of Sandman and The Creeper and Wildcat, and the revivals of All-Star Comics and Black Hawk are imminent. This week, I'm sure a lot of people have been looking forward to us covering this story. As you can hear, we've roped a couple of people in to assist us because it's so very special. This week, I'm delighted to say we're doing issue 124 of The Brave and the Bold, featuring Batman and Sgt Rock, a.k.a. the one with Jim Aparo. Peter's going to tell us about the cover.
Yes, the cover is in black and white. You have a cigar band at the top. You have the Brave and Bold logo, the DC line of superstars. Batman and Sgt Rock. We have Sgt Rock. He appears to be pointing a gun at Batman, who looks appalled. There are two hooded men in the background. Sgt Rock has got a word balloon coming out of his mouth and he's saying absolutely nothing, because this cover is actually on an artist's drawing board. We pull back and we can see it's being illuminated by an angle-poised lamp. There is another man with a hood over his head who's pointing a gun at a very sweaty artist who's got a pencil in his hand. He's got thinning hair on top and he's wearing glasses. As I said, sweat lashing off him. And the hooded gunman is saying,
"Finish the cover, Aparo. Rock kills Batman, or I kill you."
There we are, Batman and Sgt Rock.
Gosh.
Issue 124 of Brave and Bold.
Yes. Obviously, listeners, we've been doing all of Sgt Rock's appearances in Brave and Bold because he's a character rooted in the Second World War and how that relates to Batman and various points in Batman's timeline, etc. Something we've been enjoying discussing. Is it the Sgt Rock of Earth 2? Is it the Sgt Rock of Earth 1? Is it the Sgt Rock of another Earth altogether? We will have many, many more questions of that ilk.
Is it the Sgt Rock of XTC fame? Is he going to help us?
Funny you should say that. Logopolis, because literally 2 minutes before we started recording, I shared a photograph on the Instagram story of our podcast Instagram, the Earth 2 podcast, the photograph of the two comics that we're recording today, and the tune I used to accompany it was Sgt Rock by XTC.
Wonderful.
Jinx, you owe me a Fanta. Right, listeners, let's just get on with it, shall we?
Yes.
We open on a very busy and exciting, dynamic Jim Aparo splash page. A caption reads,
"Down a Gotham City street careens a car full of hooded figures. A hurricane of fire spraying everyone and everything in sight."
Indeed it does. There's a pow 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 of heavy machine gun fire. We see a dog running for cover, an older man ducking for cover, a vegetable cart being overturned as this orange car speeds through the busy city situation, firing bullets everywhere. People are panicked. There is a large Batman logo and a large Sgt Rock logo. Tiny caption tells us the story is by
Bob Haney, and art by Jim Aparo.
The old man who's falling to the ground. We suddenly see rip off his face. It wasn't his face, it was a mask. Underneath is Batman, who yells,
"Murdering rats! I was waiting for you this time!"
And a caption reads,
"Through the ages, the key to victory in the unceasing struggle for human freedom and security has been one man and his weapon. And it is no different today in the turmoil of a modern city as shadowy enemies brandish terror's bloody flag. And only the Batman and his sidekick, Sgt Rock, can fight the Small War of the Super Rifles."
Gosh.
Part 1. Bloodhound in Khaki.
Who, of course, supported the Montrose Avenue at the Sheffield Lead Mill in 1998. A caption reads,
"Now a lithe figure leaps like a jungle cat."
The lithe figure in question, listeners, of course, is Batman, who's leaping onto the speeding vehicle from which the hooded gunmen are firing.
And as a police car takes up the chase,
This is the siren of the police car. And also the officer in the passenger seat is firing at the orange, metallic, shiny car that Batman is clinging to that has the hooded figures inside. As he holds on for dear life to the roof of the car, Batman thinks,
"These hooded creeps have really got the cops outgunned. Where did they get such firepower?" The vehicle of bizarre rifleman turns a corner, momentarily out of police view.
Yes, the people in the car don't seem to be aware that they've got Batman on the roof. They've pulled into an alleyway, it looks like. I can see a couple of dustbins, so you better take a couple of drinks, listeners. And as the car pulls up, one of the hooded figures gets out. Batman thinks,
they're dropping off one of them.
But then the next panel, he's suddenly assailed by a couple of shots, a couple of pow-pows. He falls back on the roof of the car thinking,
I'm spotted. Time to unload.
There appears to be a bit of a narrative leap between this and the next panel. The next panel, Batman is walking through the alleyway and he's thinking,
those creeps in the car left me for dead and then took off. Commissioner Gordon's boys will have to catch the car while I corral this dropout.
Yes, and take another drink, listeners, because there's another dustbin. That was great of Batman to fill that in for us there, wasn't it?
Some instinct, fine honed by 100 ambushes, makes the masked manhunter die flat, as...
Yes, there's another pow-pow-pow as he's shot upon by another weapon. Batman ducks into an open doorway as he thinks,
incredible! That rifle he's firing, it's more like a machine gun. And now, silence. Damp, filth-smelling silence from the abandoned tenement darkness.
Yes, take 3 drinks, listeners, because there are 3 dustbins here. One of them tipped over. Batman is looking around thinking,
what gives? He must be out of ammo or he'd blast away.
He starts to move back through the doorway, thinking,
I'll rush him.
There's a weird
whoomph
sound effect as Batman looks around and exclaims,
huh? As the gritty dust settles...
The next panel, Batman is looking down at a body. Very helpfully, Batman says out loud,
He killed himself, or rather, his gun exploded. This piece of barrel, it's greasy.
Yes, we can see Batman is holding up something very small. We can also see the smoke that's coming off the figure of the person on the ground. As Batman continues his examination, a pair of khaki trousers walk into view behind him, and a voice says, never call a rifle a gun. It's a rifle. A weapon. A piece. A soldier's best friend. And that ain't grease, that's cosmoline. All new rifles are packed in it. Batman spins and says,
what?
And then recognises,
Rock, you old son of a rifle. What in blazes are you doing here?
Hiya, bad buddy. Yeah, it's old Rock again, and that hunk of barrel in your mid is why I'm here. It's all what's left of an M76, the US Army's latest and greatest top-secret rifle.
But how'd this character come by it?
The next few panels are narrated by Sgt Rock. They have the nice ripply border effect that we're used to for such things. He begins, good question, Batman. 1,000 M76s was being shipped secret to an ordnance testing base when somebody got wise and hijacked them. And we see a truck labelled Infantino Fruits and Vegetables that's been pulled up, and hooded figures wearing purple robes carrying heavy crates out the back of the truck and putting them into a smaller van. The narration from Rock continues. That's when General Omaha Mike Casey calls me in. Him and me hit the D-Day beaches together in the big war. And we see General Casey, looks a bit like Charlton Heston to my eyes actually.
Yeah.
Brown hair, cigar in his mouth, they're standing in an office, paperwork, desk, etc. He's holding a couple of sheets of A4 and he's saying,
from the Minutemen's flintlock to the Kentucky long rifle, from the Springfield 03 to the Garand M1, the American fighting man's always at the top firearm. The M76 the best yet, the ultimate infantry weapon. The Army's own intelligence agents are stumped, Rock. So, I'm assigning you as a one-man commando force with special combat authority. Every GI who ever fought for Uncle Sam's counting on you. Bring back those stolen rifles, Rock.
Yes, sir, General, says Rock. Wide-eyed, he salutes. Since then, old Rock's been playing bloodhound, following a twisted trail after those missing rifles. Few times I came awful close. There's a nice montage of shots of Sgt Rock examining a target pinned to a post and kicking a door open and chasing a lad down an alleyway. The guy's carrying a gun. He runs past a couple of dustbins, taking a couple of drinks. You will need them for this story. Past a full-page advertisement for the $6 Million Man action figure. My cousin Mark had one of those. Hi to Mark if you're listening. We're back with Rock and Batman. As they emerge from the place Batman hid from the gunman, I count about 7, maybe 8 dustbins to take 8 drinks. As they walk up the stairs, the Rock is saying, the trail led here, to Gotham City, and those hooded jokers in that car. The dead one inside, like all the others, his stolen M76 was gimmicked so he could blow up himself and the weapon if he was ever cornered.
Incredible, but it helps explain things. A terrorist group calling itself The 1000 has been taking credit for random killings and attacks all over Gotham in recent weeks. It's got to be the same bunch, but we don't know their motive. 1,000 super rifles in the hands of 1,000 fanatics. The city's facing a deadly crisis. Come on, Rock, we've got to get to police headquarters.
Oh, good, it's a crisis. I wonder if any members of the JSA will turn up. That'd be nice. There's a slow dissolve.
Shortly.
And we see Batman and Sgt Rock with Commissioner Gordon. Commissioner Gordon looks very impassioned, his hand gesticulating as he says, "That bunch got away. Busted through a roadblock and put 3 police cars out of action with their firepower."
Bad news, Commissioner. Now, where do we start? We haven't a solid clue.
Sgt Rock, with a cigarette in his mouth, shouldn't smoke kids, is saying, "Correction, Cape Crusader. I found this on that dead bozo. A key to a bus terminal locker." We can see he's holding the key up. "Guess the old Sarge's a pretty good detective, huh?"
Well, what are we waiting for?
And
soon
we see Bats and the Rock going to put the key in the lock of the aforementioned bus terminal locker.
Number 324. The key fits. Your guess is we'll find an M76 inside.
Yeah, disassembled. I figure the gang keeps them stashed all over town, ready to be picked up fast. And then, at the top of page 6, there's the slow dissolve of all slow dissolves.
At this very moment, in the quiet Connecticut studio of Jim Aparo, famed artist.
Yes, it's a back view of Jim Aparo. God bless him! You can see him sat at his drawing board. A few completed pages in front of him. It looks like he does his own lettering going with this as well. And we can clearly see the complete drawing of page 4. As his angle-poised lamp casts light over his desk, Jim has a big stretch and thinks to himself,
"Another page. Guess I'll take a break. These brave and bold scripts are toughies." But when the gifted delineator of 1001 Adventures returns to his drawing board...
Yep, coffee in hand, Jim picks up the script pages, reads them and thinks,
"What's that crazy writer done now? He's got Batman and Sgt Rock being killed in the next panel. I'll fix that."
Jim looks up, startled to see 2 hooded figures, each bearing fancy-looking guns, standing in front of him. Jim exclaims,
"Who are you? How'd you get in?"
One of the hooded figures says, "Skip the questions. Draw what it says."
"Good Lord, you're some of the gang from the story. You changed the script while I was out of the room."
"Yeah, bright boy. Now, draw."
His mind racing, hand trembling, Aparo begins to pencil the next panel.
Yes, we see Jim drawing what appears to be the next panel of the story. We can see the hand of Batman sliding the key into the hole for the bus terminal locker. As he draws, Jim thinks,
"If I complete this and the next panel the way the script reads, Batman and Rock will die. Got to do something."
Very quickly, Jim is inspired. He forces the point of his pencil down on the page so there's a loud
snap.
And then he says,
"Broke my pencil."
Turns to the 2 baddies and says,
"You two made me nervous. I have more in the storeroom."
"We checked. It's got no exit. Okay? Get yourself another pencil. But don't break it or we'll be doing some breaking ourselves."
Part 2 of the most daring and unique Brave and Bold ever served up. Next.
And at the top of page 7, a caption reads,
Part 2, The Long Night.
Jim's a sharp cookie, listeners, because he knew something about the detail of his house that the bad guys didn't spot. We see a grating lying on the grass next to a hole in the wall in the side of Jim's house. As he climbs out thinking,
"They didn't spot this vent. Got to get away before they come looking for me." And within a minute...
Indeed, the 2 hooded guys have followed Jim outside. They see the grating on the floor and the leader says, "He's gone. We're in big trouble. We've got to report this to number 1.
Not long after, a small boat turns out into Long Island Sound.
Yes, we see a very small motorboat cutting through the sea towards, a lighthouse. We've not had a lighthouse in a very long time.
Very true.
Was it that Brave and the Bold with Flash? Was that the last time we had a lighthouse?
I think it was, yeah.
It was ages ago. That's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Jim in his boat's cutting through the water, and he thinks to himself,
"My pal Chuck lives in that abandoned, reconditioned lighthouse. I'll hide there. The police would never believe my story."
Now, let's hope that Chuck turns up and has some lines, because, listeners, who do you think we could get to play Chuck? Spoilers, Chuck doesn't appear, sadly.
And as the desperate artist reaches the top of the lofty old structure...
Oh, this is a great panel. We see the detail of the lamp for the lighthouse, but also set up as a drawing table, a chair, and a whole bunch of pencils. As Jim Aparo walks into the room thinking,
"Chuck must be away. His drawing supplies. Just what I need." Without so much as a pause to rest, Jim Aparo resumes work on the very sequence he had to interrupt.
Yes, Jim starts drawing, and we see again a wider pullback shot of Batman inserting the key in the lock of the locker in the bus station. Jim, helpfully though, thinks to himself,
"Batman's opening the locker door, but now I draw in Rock's big paw grabbing his shoulder and..."
We're back into the main story. There is a
blam!
As Sgt Rock pulls Batman back, an explosion from inside the locker, and Rock exclaims, "Booby trap!" Both heroes duck to the ground. In the first panel of page 8, Batman says,
Thanks, Rock. How'd you know?
just an old fighting man's sixth sense. And then we pull back to once again Jim Aparo drawing the detail. And on the page that he's drawing in the panel, we hear Batman saying,
That wipes out our only lead. What next?
And Jim thinks,
I wish I knew, Batman. The script's back with those hooded men, and I'm not the writer. Of course, I'll call Bob HANEY. And 100 miles away, at a pine-surrounded house in the Catskill Mountains.
And I'm delighted to say that we start with the external view of the building rather than beginning inside and cutting outside, as we hear a voice saying,
Hello, Jimbo. What's on your mind? But that's unbelievable. Easy, fella. We'll figure a way out.
We cut inside and we see a man with long dark hair and a thick beard and a sort of orange-brown checked shirt on the telephone, and he's obviously talking to Jim Aparo, and we hear him saying,
Those terrorists don't know where you are, Jim. So sit tight while I call Murray to get his okay on our next move.
Shortly, somewhere in Long Island's vast suburban sprawl.
Yes, it's a very nice apartment here. We can see a potted plant and rows of bookshelves. And the dark-haired man with a pipe in his mouth on the telephone is seen from the back, and he's saying,
Bob? What's that? The 1,000? They're onto us? Trying to keep Batman and Rock from exposing them? Sure, feed Jim whatever it takes to turn the tables on the rats. Right. I'll stand by.
Before we continue, listeners, I just want to point out that the opposite page is a full page of house ads for the return of All-Star Comics and also the return of Blackhawk. A caption emphasises Jerry Conway, Steve Skeets and George Evans present return of the world's greatest fighting team, so we'll get to that very soon on the show. Final panel of page 8 is captioned,
And as the sun reaches its zenith over the mountains.
Yes, it's another nice view of Bob Haney's country abode. We hear him from inside saying,
Hello, Jim. Okay, here's our next sequence.
And as the tide ebbs through Plum Gut and along the sun-dappled shores of Long Island Sound.
Jim Aparo's pencil is in hand once again. We can see that he's drawing Sgt Rock and Batman very loosely. And he's also lettering as he goes. Sgt Rock can be seen saying, The M76 needs special ammo. The hijackers didn't get any, so they're making their own. Sure shooting. And we then cut back into the story properly. Sgt Rock drops some cartridges into Batman's hands, saying, But they couldn't be making the brass shell casings. They must be buying them in gun shops.
You are a smart sleuth, Rock. I'll check gun shops for anybody buying cases like them. And as Batman makes the rounds of Gotham's gunsmiths.
Yes, we see Batman talking to a small man with a neat moustache, wearing a very charming red spotted bow tie. You can see various guns and things hanging on the wall behind him. He's holding up one of the cartridges that Sgt Rock gave to Batman, and he's saying, Yeah, some guy was in last Friday and bought a box of these, Batman. Only request I've ever had for him.
Good. Today's Friday. Maybe he'll come back. Here's what I want you to do.
And in the next panel, we see Batman lurking in the alleyway outside Smitty's gun shop. We can see a shady-looking figure in a green blouse-sewn jacket, purple trousers, purple gap, walking up to the doorway of the shop. As he lurks, Batman thinks,
2 hours and no luck. I'll stick around a few more minutes.
In the next panel, we see the chap in the purple and green leaving, and Smitty the gunsmith waving to Batman from the shop window. Batman thinks,
The gunsmith, signalling. He sold that guy some casings.
Batman runs after the figure in green and purple, saying,
Just a minute.
And the man reaches inside of his jacket, pulls out a pistol, and spins towards Batman, who declares the name of his favourite Dirty Harry movie.
Uh-oh. Magnum Force.
We arrive at the top of page 10, as the gunman fires on Batman with a
Crack, crack, crack.
Batman leaps forward, grabbing him by the legs, putting him down to the ground, and then punching him out. And I must quickly point out the advertisement for Matchbox cars on the previous page, because they look amazing. I'm sure I had one or two of those. They look very familiar. Anyway, the guy in purple and green is out for the count, as Smitty the gunsmith emerges from the shop and crosses towards Batman, who says,
Can't figure how he missed me.
He didn't. I saw them blanks for that licensed Magnum. I had a hunch he might use it on you.
Thanks. We need more citizens like you.
With that, Batman marches off, dragging the guy in green and purple behind him by the scruff of the neck, as Batman says,
Wonder how Rock is making out. Not too far away, the grizzled six-striper prowls the streets.
Yes, we see Sgt Rock walking the streets, cigarette in his mouth, don't smoke kids, and he's thinking, I feel stupid. Just hoping those mugs show themselves for my convenience. and over his left shoulder he notices a familiar-looking military vehicle, and his thoughts continue. That army truck. Probably some GIs heading back to camp after furlough. A dazzling display of skill, Sgt Rock rushes forward and leaps and grabs hold of the back of the truck. As he hangs on, his hat flies off, and he thinks to himself, Whoa, this ain't no army vehicle. It's got civvy license plates.
But as the legendary top kicker hops aboard...
There are far too many phrases that sound like 90s indie band names in this. It's really distracting.
Yes.
Anyway, we see that there are two hooded figures in the back of the truck, moving towards Sgt Rock, who yells, It's combat time! And then there's some fisticuffs in the next panel before one of the hooded figures brings up one of his fancy rifles and smacks Sgt Rock on the back of the head with the butt of the gun. There's a massive thud, and a caption then reads,
A few moments later...
Gosh, right, listeners, if any page just demonstrates the skill of Jim Aparo, it's this one. We see the truck driving across a bridge which is above and crosses over a railway line. We also see Sgt Rock's body being unceremoniously tossed out the back of the truck. He falls down and collides with the railway line just as a train is roaring up behind him. Sarge suddenly seems to be wide-eyed and he exclaims, Yow! And luckily, he manages to roll out of the way of the train just in time as it roars past. We get a close-up of his chest in the final panel of page 11 as he thinks to himself, Blazes! Hitting my chest in that rail drove the pin of my combat infantry badge into my hide. Woke me up just in time. It's like somebody's playing Guardian Angel for the old Sarge.
3 Guardian Angels rock, named Jim, Bob and Murray. For, as night falls in a secret meeting place...
Yes, this secret meeting place, we see a number of the purple hooded figures with their tight purple t-shirts and green jeans, and they're being addressed by a man wearing a green cloak and a red hood, sat on a chair under a sign that reads, 1,000 dedicated men can change the world. Terror is power, and this hooded figure is saying, Batman captures one of our number, and Sgt Rock escapes certain death. Only one explanation. Aparo is drawing them out of trouble, thwarting us at every turn. One of the purple hooded figures steps forward, saying,
But Leader 1, we've got the script. How...
Idiot! The leader slams his fist down, interrupting him, saying, Aparo's obviously in contact with HANEY the writer. He's feeding Aparo what those two heroes need. We must stop that. Fast.
And as the long night drags on...
We cut back to the lighthouse and we see Jim Aparo again at his drawing board and again on the phone, and he's saying,
Yeah, Bob, I got that. Rock's on his way to Police HQ to check with Batman. What happens next? Bob, you still there? And 100 miles north.
We're back with Bob Haney. On the phone to Jim, he says,
Check, Jimbo, I'm here. But a car's cruised by twice now out on the road. Something funny?
And at this point, Bob's dog, beautiful-looking big white beastie, growls, Rawr. And Bob says,
Easy, Belle. Easy, girl.
He crosses the window, looks outside. We see a car pulled up outside his house, headlights on full beam, and Bob cries,
My God, Jim, it's them. The terrorists. They're here. How'd they find me? Easy. Anybody in the village would give a visitor directions.
Bob reaches up for the rifle that's mounted on the wall over his mantelpiece before continuing,
I'm clearing out. I'll try to contact you later, Jim. Keep in touch with Murray. Signing off.
And part 2 signs off here, but the astounding wind-up is coming right up in part 3. Now.
The Astounding Wind-Up. That's a good name for a band, isn't it? Top of page 13, we get a caption that reads,
Part 3. The Tide Brings Death.
I think they're playing the Cat House on Saturday.
Their movements covered by the rustle of a breeze, a big man and his dog fade into the dark pines.
And we see, beautifully rendered in silhouette, Bob and Belle running through the forest.
While inside the house...
A number of the hooded figures have made their way in. The first one is saying,
He was here. The fire's still going strong.
Never find him in those woods. But maybe he left us a map that'll lead us where we really want to go. One of the hooded figures picks something up and says,
A phone number was erased in the slate, but by crumbling some chalk dust onto it, the dust catches on the slightly greasy invisible outline left by the erased number. Ah, here it comes.
Yes, my goodness, this is dazzling skills by these hooded figures. The number 203 starts to become visible, and then the hooded figure delightedly holds up the slate, picks up the phone, dials, presumably, and can be heard saying,
Leader 1, we've got Aparo's phone number, where he's holed up.
And we hear Leader 1's voice as he replies, Good work. One of our members is an ex-phone company employee. He can track where Aparo is from the number alone.
Meantime,
We're back with editor Murray Boltonoff. We get a front shot view of him here. He's on the phone, and we hear Jim Aparo saying,
Murray, Jim, you've got to tell me the next sequence until Bob can reach a phone. Batman's grilling his prisoner at Police HQ. What next?
and Murray says,
Okay, Jimmy, here goes.
As the editor racks his brain to help the brave and bold duo,
we again see Jim Aparo drawing the events of what's taking place. We see Batman talking to Sgt Rock. One fellow sat in a chair behind Batman, as Batman is saying,
can't get anything out of him.
Let me have him for a minute. In the next panel, we're back into the story properly. Sgt Rock and Batman leading the goon that they caught outside the gun shop, walking along a corridor. You can see a sign on a door that says Police Laboratory. The goon says, You're wasting your time, Tin Soldier. Some really tough Nazi troopers said the same thing, but they all spilled their guts, pal. They enter the laboratory. There's a number of cages, filing cabinets, etc., and one cage we can see has a rat inside it. Rock starts walking the goon towards it, saying, See that rat, Buster? It's rabid. One bite, and you get rabies. Ever see a guy die of rabies? It's horrible. You wouldn't, exclaims the goon. Sergeant Rock shoves his face right up to the side of the cage, saying, Wouldn't I, Crumb? I know law-respecting cop. I'm a trained killer on a combat mission. You and your lousy gang declared war on America. To me, you're the enemy. And the wide-eyed panicked goon yells, Please don't! I'll talk!
Shortly,
We see Batman and Sergeant Rock descending the stairs outside Gotham Police headquarters. The Cape Crusader says,
Rock, you're something else. That rat wasn't rabid.
That creep didn't know. Come on. He told us where we'd find the whole rotten outfit. We see them walking towards a police car. In the next panel, they're driving along in the police car. No Batmobile, disappointing. As Batman says,
Now we know the Thousandth's motive. Like so many crazy groups today, they have no real cause or program, just pure terror to gain power.
We cut back to Jim Aparo lighting a cigarette at the drawing desk as he thinks,
Okay, the good guys are closing in on the bad guys. I'll take a break, then call Murray back for the wind-up.
In the first panel of page 15, we see Jim standing up from the desk, taking a stretch, which I'm miming for the benefit of YouTube viewers, and thinks to himself,
Dawn's breaking. I've been at the board all night. Say, what's that out in the sound?
And Jim picks up a handy telescope that we can see on the shelf beside him and looks through it and sees,
My God, it's them!
Jim is excelling himself here. A beautiful exterior, high-altitude shot of the lighthouse here with the boat cutting through the water towards it. We can see the rocks breaking the surface of the water as Jim thinks,
Somehow they found me. The rock barrier. They won't be able to pass over it until high tide. That gives me maybe 20 minutes. Murray's got to give me the solution fast.
And take a drink, listeners, because a full moon looms outside. Jim picks up the telephone, dials, but...
Huh? His line's busy.
And we cut to Murray's apartment where we see...
Not really, Jim. Just slightly off the hook.
Off the Hook by Chuck Berry, of course. We cut back to a panicked, sweating Jim Aparo who thinks,
I hung up, hoping he'll call me. Why doesn't he? He's got to. But as the minutes tick by and the tide continues to flood over the rock barrier...
Jim's phone suddenly, at last, rings.
Bring!
And in the first panel of page 16, we see Bob Haney and Belle at a phone booth at a gas station. Thank goodness. We hear Jim's voice down the receiver.
Bob, thank heavens. But how?
No time to explain, Jimbo. Can't stay here long. Quick, fill me in.
And after the trapped artist tells his fugitive collaborator what has happened...
Jim again starts drawing, as we hear Bob saying down the phone,
Okay, Bat and Rock have found the terrorist hideout, secret lair.
and we see on the page in front, as Jim draws, lettering as he goes, Batman and Sgt Rock in the headquarters of the 1000, but none of them seem to be around. Batman can be seen exclaiming,
Gone! But where?
and then we cut back into the story properly. Batman holds up a large map.
A navigation chart of the Connecticut coast, with a drawing of an M76 pointing to a tiny island.
Could be the place they stashed some of the rifles. Let's move, pal. And Rock and Batman move off.
But, once outside,
Batman is saying,
they've got a good head start.
but Rock points up the hill from where they're standing. We see a sign that reads Copter Rides $15, and there's a handy helicopter parked there. Sergeant Rock points towards it saying, that's sightseeing Whirlybird. We gotta borrow it.
Not long after...
We're in the boat of the members of the 1000 who are closing in on Jim Aparo. It looks like the leader is there with a few of his goons. The leader is saying, tide's covered the rocks. take us in. But one of the goons has heard something. He turns and points to the sky, saying,
Captor coming! And as the cruiser churns toward the lighthouse...
The goons, with their M76s, all start firing up at the helicopter. There's lots and lots of...
Pow, 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 pow,
as the
pow.
leader cries, blast it out of the sky! Fire! Fire! In the first panel of page 17, the pows and pows continue, but there's also a whole bunch of...
Zing, zing, pew.
as the bullets ricochet off the helicopter. We see Sergeant Rock hanging out of the helicopter, taking aim to fire back at the goons down below. He says to Batman, hold her steady.
Can't rock. We'll be blitzed.
And as the Cape Crusader sways the chopper, Sergeant Rock attempts perhaps the toughest shot he's ever fired.
Very impressed at what Sergeant Rock pulls off here from the helicopter. High above the boat, he manages to fire at the rear of the boat, and the next caption tells us what he's done.
Its rudder cable cut. The cruiser spins out of control in the tidal chop.
Yeah, we see the boat starting to veer around madly. A couple of the goons still firing up at the helicopter, but one of them falls into the water. We cut back to the cabin of the helicopter, and we see through the glass that smoke is pouring from the back of the machine. Batman yells,
We're hit bad. I'll hold her another second over the boat. Then we bail out.
Next instant...
with the helicopter spinning away in flames. We see Batman and Sergeant Rock dropping down towards the boat full of goons who are still firing up at them. They land with amazing force in the first panel of page 18, knocking goons and gunmen flying as we see the helicopter crashing into the water in the background. Batman takes out another goon with a vicious elbow jab as we see Sergeant Rock taking out the remaining goon using the butt of one of the rifles. Sergeant Rock picks up a rifle and turns to the leader and the other survivors and says, surrender, or be blasted. And then we suddenly cut back to Jim Aparo at his drawing table, who wipes a hand across his brow and sits back saying,
It's over. I'm safe.
And now, some distance away in his heavily mortgaged mansion...
we see editor Murray Boltonoff, the gorgeous purple bathrobe, walking up the stairs, thinking,
Had the phone off the hook, but I got through to Jim and found Bob had solved the situation. Now for some sleep.
And where the sun rises higher over the Catskills...
we see Bob, Haney and Bell making their way back from the phone booth to their lovely big house. As Bob says,
Batman and Rock found a list of terrorists on the leader. The rest are being rounded up and the rifles are recovered. Guess we can go home, girl.
on the final panel of the story, we see one Jim Aparo asleep at his desk, pencil in hand, big Zs to suggest some snores, and in the bottom right-hand corner of the final panel that he has drawn, we can read...
The end.
and a small caption reads,
Next issue on sale during the third week in December.
well then, immediate thanks to Ross and Steve for helping us out there.
Mm-hmm.
Ross recorded his lines ages ago,
Yeah, months ago.
and Steve recorded his like 2 weeks ago or something.
Ross recorded his before JS April, I think.
Yeah, I think he even did it before the last GLA GSA crossover.
Oh well, there we
I
are.
think it was ages ago because we sort of, should we get Ross to do Bob Haney? So I says to Ross, will you do Bob Haney? And Ross looked sure, and then like Pete had it by return of post, and I was like, it was ages ago. So thank you for helping us out there, lads. Always a pleasure.
Yes, never a chore.
Make sure to check out Ross's continued work on Opal City Confidential, Stop Let's Team Up, Gallifrey's Most Wanted, all of that stuff.
Yes.
Where do we start here then, Peter?
Well, I think this has been a lovely episode and a great way to end the podcast. Because we can't top this.
It was phenomenal, isn't it? It is amazing. It's so postmodern and fourth wall shattering. I can imagine it being an episode of like a late episode of Star Trek The Next Generation or something like that, where they cut to the production people and then cut back into that. It's the sort of thing that Russell T Davies would maybe do on Doctor Who next year if he gets another series.
Well, look, we've had the creators appear in stories before. Obviously, we've had Gil Kane, and his name is Kane. Recently, we had Elliot Magan and Carrie Bates. We've had Carrie Bates a couple of times now. We had that where they wrote themselves into the story as Earth Prime characters. Julie Schwartz has appeared as an Earth Prime character.
Carmine rocked up.
Yep, Arnold Drake addressed the reader and said, "Oh, will the Doom Patrol survive? Only you can tell us, readers." And of course they didn't for a very long time. Anyway, we've had all that before, but I think this is the best integration we've had out of all of them. Because it's playing with the fiction, the proper blending of fiction and reality, as opposed to this is someone travelling over from a parallel universe. Really,
It also vaguely echoes, which is probably the reason why we did it, that Action Comics story we did last year, The Man Who Created Superman.
Yes, I can see that. Uh-huh.
There's a very close sort of resemblance there with what that guy's sort of saying, affecting. The way this is obviously different from all the Earth Prime referencing or fourth wall breaking is that what we see here is Jim Aparo and Bob Haney and Murray's actions directly affecting what happens to Batman and Sgt Rock.
Yes.
But at the same time, the villains from the Batman and Sgt Rock story turn up to threaten the people who are writing the story.
Yeah.
And there's no real way to resolve that under an Earth Prime, Earth 1 interaction type thing. The edges are completely blurred here.
Yes. This is its own land of fiction, as it were.
This is impossible. This is like, the word for this is iconoclastic.
Yeah.
This is subversive. It's almost in a way like Batman and Sgt Rock are kind of guest stars in their own story.
Uh-huh.
It's the way the sort of camera gradually pulls back and then cuts back in, and the way that Jim changes events. The fact that the bad guys have managed to leave the story and go to where Jim is and then affect the script. Jim has to change it back.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the confidence as a writer, so he's got to ask the other guys. And then they all sort of just tidy it all up. It's almost like Jim is drawing. It's kind of, it reminds me in some ways of the tail end of the Doctor Who story, The Mind Robber.
Yep, exactly, yeah. Uh-huh.
Where the Doctor has to be careful not to write himself into the events of what's actually going on, because then he'll become fiction.
Yep, hence my land of fiction comment. Yeah.
Yeah. Even just the cover, it's just like, it's so circular, and unfortunately Jim and Murray and Bob don't actually meet Batman. I think ideally it would have finished with Batman and Sgt Rock visiting Jim and having a cup of coffee with him at the end of,
Or Jim looking out the lighthouse window and waving down to them or something, Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, because they rock up out. I mean, it's the fact, oh my God, it's insane. Just like, where do you start on this? It's just like crazy.
Yeah. But the thing is, Jim could have just drawn, and the leader falls dead of a heart attack. That would have been it,
Yeah.
That's not the story. They have to still tell the story. This pulse-pounding tale is what they have to go through. It's very exciting. I kind of wish, to a certain extent, we just had a normal Batman Sgt Rock cover on it. Because could you imagine reading that without having a clue what was about to happen? And then you're suddenly blown away with that. As cool as the cover is, part of me sort of makes you think, I kind of like her, if only.
I'll be tactful here and say I'll take your point. Yeah, that would have been effective, but I think the cover is such a big part of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean,
this is another one that I would have bought from Pete Root 30 years ago, and probably read once when I bought it. It's unquantifiable. It's so different to everything else. I mean, even as you say there, the very fact that Batman and Sgt Rock turn up outside the very lighthouse that Jim is in. Yeah. It's the absolute blurring of reality and the fiction within a fictional, and I think it's genius. This is up there with like A Candle for St. Cloud or Gerber's stuff in Defenders with a gnome and he's Howard the Duck stuff. This is impossible. This is in some ways the most creative, maybe one of the best stories we've ever done, because we can't say which Earth this takes. It just can't be categorized at all. It's something else.
Oh, this is its own. It's its own. Yeah. It doesn't tie in with any other Batman Sgt Rock stories, and it shouldn't. It's fine. I think this might be more of an inspiration for Grant Morrison's end to Animal Man than perhaps the Carrie Bates appearances in Earth Prime and stuff like that. Yeah. Because in that, Grant, during his conversation with Buddy, who's Animal Man, goes over several plot ideas that were suggested to him, or characters that were suggested to him, and as he's saying these things, they're actually physically happening. Yes. But yeah, basically, as Grant's saying, literally just the words coming out of his mouth, then that reality is happening to Buddy. Yeah. And that's like the shorthand version of this, which is great.
I hadn't thought about that similarity, and it's also worth pointing out that there's around about the same time that Animal Man appeared in Strange Adventures, there is a story, which we should maybe think about doing, actually, where a guy buys a copy of Strange Adventures and gets chased by the monster on the cover. Yeah. We'll have a look at it, and if it's doable, we might just do it next week to give us another breather, but maybe not.
We might.
That'll take us off the plot again. Maybe we'll do it before Animal Man makes his first appearance in the show.
Maybe.
The Grant comparison is brilliant, actually. I really like that. That really works. I hadn't thought about that. That's a similar one, but that's a bit more defined because we know that Buddy has, if you like, entered our reality. Yeah. I hadn't read this in a long time, and I'm just dazzled by the way it's almost like Aparo is drawing the events that are happening to him at the same time.
Exactly, yeah.
It's insane.
And the narrative device of having the artist's board and the black and white image and him drawing the panel, and then the next panel you're there with the action, it's great. And then just suddenly cutting back to the reality. It's so good. I mean, as I said, the first time you turn the page and it's Jim Aparo in his studio, just like, oh, I need to stretch. And and on his left-hand side, you can see the script pages from Bob Haney, so he comes back and it's like the script's been altered. Because he's got his art pages on the right-hand side and he's got the script pages on the left-hand side. And the idea of these terrorists trying to do this by changing a script.
But that's the whole thing. That's what I mean about blurring the edges, because the terrorists are in the story that Jim Aparo is drawing, but they're trying to affect the outcome of the story they're appearing in.
Yeah.
So if you hold on to that, that suggests that parallel events are maybe playing out, or the terrorists have the ability, they've got the ability to cross to Earth Prime, and they're maybe trying to affect the outcome of what's taking place on Earth 1. But that pulls into the whole thing. When Jay first meets Barry, and they talk about how Barry had read Jay's adventures.
Sure.
The Flash, obviously, listeners. There's that whole thing about the events that actually happened on Earth 2 were sort of received in the dreams of the people on Earth 1 who were writing the stories.
Sure.
So is this an extension of that? It's a sort of chicken and egg thing. If you look at it this way, it's sort of like, what comes first? Did the events actually happen, or is it like with the whole Superboy Prime thing, which came up in Infinite Crisis? The laughable 2000s retcon of a Superboy Prime punch against the continuity is what made things change, because he was a person from Earth Prime, and the people from Earth Prime had the ability to affect what was happening in the main universe. So is this a similar thing here? Do the hooded gangsters know that they can get Aparo to affect what's actually happening in their reality?
Perhaps. I mean, that is a possibility.
I'm not asking you to obviously to answer this.
No.
All we can do is sort of speculate. We'll have to find for the end of the year if there's any interviews with Bob Haney where he talks about this. Yeah. So we can maybe mention it in the end of the year episode or something.
The name of the criminal gang as well, the Thousands or the 1000, does actually have a bit of a legacy in DC Comics.
Yes, Booster Gold and Rose and Thorn and all that.
Yep, but that grew out of the criminal organisation, the 100, which
yes.
started in Black Lightning and some of the Superman titles.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that didn't last much longer.
No, I don't remember any mention of them ever after whenever Booster dealt with them or whatever.
No. He had several organisations like that all around the same time. You had that, you had the 2000 Committee and Firestorm, and there were a couple others. Obviously, there's always Intergang occasionally.
Yes.
But yeah, there were a few that rose up and then just vanished.
Yeah.
But it's quite fun to see the reuse of that name, or the pre-use of that name, I should say.
Yeah, it does add another layer of it in that way that you and I like to have fun with Legacy, when we like to point, the reuse of character names out. Actually, even just the fact that Bob Haney was in it and had his dog, and there was slight mocking sort of stuff in the captioning where they talk about Murray Boltonov's luxury penthouse apartment and all that sort of stuff.
Heavily mortgaged, yes.
I love the idea of Haney just living out in the Catskills, breathing all that sweet, pure mountain air and smoking funny stuff and having a great time, chilling out with his dog.
No family members seen by anyone. That's the thing. Do all these guys just live alone? Well, apart from Bob and his dog, obviously. Or did Jim just not have any artistic reference for them?
Oh, I don't know. It's a thought.
I wonder how this story was pitched.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, do you think Bob said, Murray, I've got an idea for a story?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of chat about Zany, Haney and all this sort of stuff, and I think, to be honest, most of the stories we've done have been fairly coherent. They haven't been too out there. Yeah. They're only really out there if you try and reconcile the whole Earth 1, Earth 2 Wildcat sort of situation and the Sgt Rock stuff.
Yeah.
And when you and Steve and I did the Brave and Bold last year that the Spectre was in, because we decided there and then that was not the Spectre that was currently appearing in Adventure Comics and blah, blah, blah. And it's, he's not concerned with the stuff we are concerned with right now.
Yeah.
50 years later, he's not concerned with continuity in a wider issue. He's concerned solely with doing his job to the best of his ability, and that is to bring out the best issue of Brave and Bold that he possibly can. And I think in this instance, he's absolutely nailed it. This is categorically one of the best comics I've ever read. This is phenomenal.
Yeah. I do think this might in part be a reaction to that last Justice League Justice Society crossover, because obviously that came out a few months before this, and if they'd got wind of that in the editorial offices, they thought, well, that sounds like quite an interesting idea.
Yeah.
What would we do as a spin in that?
Yeah, that's the thought.
Let's not just have Carrie and Elliot and Julie and all that, just have their own fun. Let's just do this.
That's very funny.
Yeah, I can see that as a conversation happening, and they all just look at each other and go, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, let's do it.
I think so. It definitely seems likely. And if it didn't, it's still a fun thing to imagine. I mean, it's a great thought that it was a follow-on. That's funny. I like that. I like that very much.
Yeah. It also must have been a hell of a challenge for Jim Aparo's storytelling, let's be honest. And he nails it.
Oh, yes, 100%.
So good. Because the action scenes aren't overshadowed by any of the real-world stuff, as it were.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that elbow in the face that Batman's doing in the last page, that's brutal.
Yes.
And as you said, the page with Rock being thrown to the rail tracks.
Oh, yeah.
Just glorious. It's incredible storytelling. It's just wonderful.
It really is.
It's so fast paced and it's ridiculous. Like you mentioned as well, there's no Batmobile. They go out, literally take a police car, they steal a chopper.
Yeah.
To chase the bad guys. It's very real world action, and the reference to Magnum Force was hilarious.
Yeah, and even just the first couple of pages of the story don't, you've got the cover setting up, but the first couple of pages don't really give anything away.
No.
The title, Small War of the Super Rifles, doesn't allude to anything that's going to play out.
No, not at all.
And as you say, if the cover hadn't given it away, I mean, it's what, 6 pages in before, page 6 before Jim rocks up.
Yeah.
So it's a third of the way into the story.
Wow.
And it's only 18 pages long, so, they do pack in a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cracker. There's no two ways about it.
Those first 6 pages fly by, and then suddenly the rest of the story just feels so much longer in comparison.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like that's a third of the story you've read at that stage because you're so engrossed in it, and it's phenomenal. It's a masterclass of storytelling, it really is.
It really is. It doesn't outstay its welcome,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it doesn't feel too short or kind of abbreviated in the way that some of the 18 sort of short, especially like the last issue of Sandman did, where we felt it kind of rounded up very quickly.
Mm-hmm. So that's us talking about it from 50 years later. Do you want to see what people thought about it at the time? Will we skip to the letters page?
We certainly will. From issue 127, the first letter goes like this. Dear Editor, Brave and the Bold number 124, Small War of the Super Rifles, Bob Haney, Jim Aparo and Murray Boltinoff have pulled off extremely well. Aha, they must have heard you, Peter. What Carrie Bates and Elliot Magan tried to achieve in last summer's JLA JSA team-up. They effectively integrated the creation of a comic book story into the comic book story and made it an asset.
Mm-hmm.
By having the villains attack the creators of the tale rather than Sgt Rock and Batman, scripter Bob Haney achieved true realism, since this was the only way to prevent the good guys from winning. Artist Aparo, I assume, accurately portrayed not only the features of the 3 real-life characters, but realistically illustrated their apparel, their homes, and their immediate surroundings. If I were to visit the Aparo home in Connecticut, I'd fully expect to find the storeroom as seen on page 6. My conclusion, not only was I enthusiastic and excited by this B&B, but it's the first time I wholeheartedly approved of a cover that depicted a scene not actually included in the story.
There you go.
Well, it kind of, that is a Defenders 39 and it does allude to it.
Uh-huh.
But of course, there isn't a point where Batman is instructed to kill Sgt Rock, so maybe that's,
No.
it is a Defenders 39, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, eat your hearts out, Carrie and Elliot, and that's from Fred Schneider, New York, New York.
Fred Schneider, perhaps, of the B-52s, we're not entirely sure. Not trying to compete with our friends in the next office, we tried the reality invading fantasy theme in what we hoped was a completely novel approach. Did we succeed? It seems as though you, Fred, led the bountiful Brave and Bold boosters in telling us, yes! Witness these wondrous words.
Wonderful, my favourite B&B story, pipes Peter Jacobs, USA. Fantastic and far out, quips Ken Meyer Jr., Ogden, Utah. And B&B proud, crows Kenneth Williams.
Kenneth Williams from the Carry On movies?
Yes, it must be.
Didn't know he was a fan. Kenneth Williams and Fred Schneider both contributing to this B&B page. Superb. We are proud, Ken, of all you readers who were so thrilled that you took time to drop us a line. All of you are of similar opinion on that issue, and the disparaging remarks were few and far between.
Of these, most objections paralleled those of Jeff Sporn, Bethesda MD, where's MD, Maryland, Mike White of Mackinac, Illinois, and Mike Darragate, Royal Oak, Michigan, who all wondered about the how and why of number 124, demanding or formulating their own ideas about Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth this, and Earth that. To answer, we ask you all to read on to what may prove to be a poignant postcard from John Fallandice, I think that's right, Jonesboro, Arkansas, who wrote, "The best part of this fine piece of literature was what you left out, the very meaningless explanation that usually follows such a story. Thank you." I like that.
Yep. Giggling Greg Coben, New York, New Jersey, asks, do these guys have these fantasies every month? No, just 8 times a year, right on schedule, says Jack C. Harris.
Glenn Nethercutt, Stockton, California, claims, "At last it's been proven that comic artists, writers and editors possess the power to shape history. Through the bravery of Haney, Aparo and Boltinoff, both Batman and Sgt Rock were saved. It's good that such power is in the right hands. I gave this issue a good review because if I told you it stunk, it seems you could have Aparo draw a sketch and have me wiped out."
Hey, that's an idea. We'll have Aparo draw the entire world clamouring to buy each issue of Brave and the Bold. Then we'll wait and see what happens.
Next bit's amazing. Ed Lang of Chicago, Illinois thinks our trio is good enough for a book of their own. What could we call it? Famous First Editors? Weird Writers' Tales? Legion of Super Makers? Seriously though, our Titanic triumvirate is too busy working on our next issue to take time out for any more true life adventures. To find the time to do so would be a miracle. Is that? Yeah, I think that might be an allusion to who's in issue 128.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to know who Batman's partner is next time around, yes it is. Read the previous sentence very carefully. B and B here. JCH. And of course, this letter's page from issue 127, which will be the next issue of Brave and Bold that Peter and I will read. So if you haven't got a copy of that one already, listeners, track it down.
Fantastic. Well, it's all downhill from here.
No, as I said, it's a bit of a purple patch. There's a lot of really interesting stuff about to start happening. I'm glad we're finally getting to this point. 1976 is going to be very satisfying.
Mm-hmm. But listeners, what did you think about this story? Did you find it satisfying as we did, or do you think it was just a piece of nonsense and we wasted our time covering it? If so, you can write to us at the Earth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media because we're putting up lots of lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. On Facebook, Instagram, and now Blue Sky, we're at the Earth2 Podcast. And on Twitter, we're still at podcast_Earth2, and it is the number 2 for all of our socials.
Listeners, if you're enjoying what we're doing, and we hope you are, please consider going to wherever it is you receive your podcast and leaving us a positive review. That'd be lovely. Or you could find your way to our link tree and our coffee page where you could buy Peter the price of a beverage as he integrates Ross and Steve's contributions into our master recording, which we're doing on this nice sunny afternoon on Wednesday the 14th of May. What's happening next week, I can't remember. Only one way to find out.
And that's to tune in. It might be a strange adventure if we feel like it, but we'll soon see. On that bombshell, I've been Peter.
I've been David. Take care. We'll see you soon on
the Earth 2 Podcast.
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
And the man reaches inside of his jacket, pulls out a pistol, and spins towards Batman, who declares the name of his favourite Dirty Harry movie.
Magnum Force. That's Tim Matheson there, and David Soul's with him.
What's that from? That rings a bell.
That's Magnum Force. They're the bad guys in Magnum Force.
Who are? Madness.
Tim Matheson and David Soul.
David Soul and Magnum Force?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Hutch. Yeah.
I didn't know. I've not seen any of those films.
Wow. Love them. Anyway.
Right, okay, cool. You can maybe stick... Once I watch the Spaghetti Westerns, you can stick them on the...